Welcome back once again to another edition of Christopher's Kitchen. A favorite of a number of folks is French onion soup, and that is our recipe of the day.
That's it, French onion soup. Classic's been around forever. Some of our favorites, some great restaurants here in town have made it for years. But I'll just show you a nice way to do it. One thing that is important is the cut of the onion also. This is our classic slice, okay? So we cut both ends off. Take the skin off, like that. Now I've cut through the root in there so that all the onions will separate. And then this is a classic onions. This is what we call sliced onions. And I like them as thin as possible. Some people like to do thick chunks, but I cook them thin so that they caramelize faster because the caramelization takes the longest. Now we have our onion slices, about 4 onions sliced. I'm going to put our butter. Got some whole butter here in a pan there. It's a hot pan already. Going to add our onions here. Sure, there's a better way to do that. All right, we're going to just put those on the fire. And over medium heat, we're just going to slowly caramelize those. Now, to do this right, it may take 20 or 30 minutes of cooking this down right. First, the onions will melt. They'll release moisture. And then once all the moisture is gone, they'll start to caramelize. And that's what makes the soup sweet. Okay, our onions are totally caramelized now. No black, just brown. We've got to add our beef broth now. Okay. Now, of course, we made this, but it's not going to be that bad. If you could buy beef broth if you wanted to. But so this is nice and rich. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of our Shinerbach beer. Let the alcohol cook out of that. And, of course, going to add a little bit of sherry in there. Let the alcohol cook out of that so we have just a good flavor. And at this time, I'm going to add a little bit of our thyme also. Just a little bit of fresh chopped thyme. Bring that to the boil and just cook out the alcohol a little bit. Now we have our caramelized onions and beef broth and thyme and beer in here. I've seasoned it with a little salt and pepper too. Now on this soup, you want to fill it almost all the way to the rim because you want those croutons floating on top because you really want that cheese to melt over the side. Okay, so now I've got some nice buttered toast rounds here that I'm going to float right on top. This is the favorite part. And I've got a couple of pieces, that might come over a little bit. A couple of pieces of Gruyere cheese, and I'm just going to let that melt over the top under our broiler. And we're just going to let that melt down till that cheese gets nice and bubbly brown, right? That's the best part, Mike, the cheese on the side. All right, we've got a nice golden brown crust to that French onion soup, just the way Mike likes it. Now this is very hot, so you can let that sit a while. That soup was still hot when we put it in there. Garnish that with a little parsley. A lot of people would use Parmesan cheese also. And Mike, let's taste it. So go ahead and attack that however you want. Oh, look, nice and crunchy on top. See that?
It is crunchy on top.
Oh, by the way, that's Gruyere cheese. Did I mention that? Gruyere cheese is the best and classic. There you go.
And here's a big bite here. Now that's a little hot.
No, you're all right.
Let me hold it here until that thing cools. I'm serious. I will not spit this out back into the bowl.
There we go. Try
I will
it, Mike.
spit it out back into the bowl. You,
Okay.
you eat a bite. You eat a bite.
I love the cheese. Good cheese, great beef broth.
Oh, yeah. Great combination.
And you see, there's a sweetness there, and that comes from caramelizing the onions. You don't get that any other way unless you do that step right. If you burn the onions, you get a bitter flavor.
Explain the cheese very briefly.
Gruyere cheese, it's got the perfect, well, I say it's a classic consistency for covering the side of the bowl, melting, and getting nice and crispy on them.
Some of you may have been unfamiliar with the spelling of that particular cheese, but it is the magic behind this soup. So all you have to do is go to the website, kbtx.com, go to featured links, find the food page, and that's where all the recipes are that we feature right here. What a delicious dish that is. All right, thanks for joining us for yet another edition. For Christopher Lampo, I'm Mike Wright for Christopher's Kitchen.